Di Maglio, economist and Asia specialist, as well as president of the Asia Center. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, this is clearly a high-stakes visit for the French. On one hand, Paris has a lot of business interests with Beijing, but on the other, it wants to influence China's thinking when it comes to a range of issues. This is a tricky balancing act, isn't it?
Yes, it's definitely very difficult balancing, because you have some whose ideas very clear, probably not ready to listen to what France has to say. And conversely, France has conflicting interests vis-à-vis China. One side is business interests, because we have to protect our own industries in China. And the other one is, of course, international issues like Ukraine war, whereby President Macron wants to influence China, not to support Russia too much. So it's a very, very difficult balancing act.
In comments just coming into us from the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, she said EU relations with China are complicated. Ursula von der Leyen has taken on a very tough line when it comes to China. Emmanuel Macron is a little more nuanced, doesn't want to follow in Washington's footsteps. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think for China, it's very simple. It's complicated for Europe. It's complicated for European leaders. One, because European leaders do not agree between themselves about what to do with China. You have Olaf Scholz, who went to China. You have Olaf Scholz not showing up in Paris. You have Ursula von der Leyen delivering one message about human rights on the one hand, and on cooperation on the economic front on the other hand. And then you have Emmanuel Macron once again, protecting French business interests, not wanting to align on Washington, and having some difficulties finding the real unified line from Europe. So for Xi Jinping, it's very easy. He just has to divide and rule and use Europe, and France in particular, as a partner and as a client.
Emmanuel Macron is hoping to sway China away from Russia. Will Beijing listen, given that China doesn't like being told what to do?
Well, for once, you have to decipher whether China has to be swayed, because China never was clear about supporting Russia. Indeed, China does help Russia, but would not explicitly say that China supports Russia. So how would you want to sway China away from Russia when China doesn't even acknowledge that China and Russia are in the same camp?
Well, they want to, for instance, cut away that link with Pyongyang, because we know, of course, North Korea is supplying shells to Russia, which Ukraine didn't have until a short while ago.
Well, yes, for North Korea, it's much simpler, because North Korea has been explicitly supporting Russia and has been delivering weapons and military armament and equipment to Russia. That's not the case for China. And China has probably more difficulties with North Korea than Russia has.
And Xi Jinping will also be visiting Hungary and Serbia, two countries that have closer ties to Russia. How will that affect everything?
Well, it does affect the whole landscape of this trip. Of course, it's much better to have Xi Jinping going to Serbia and Hungary after France. Imagine what it would be if Xi Jinping was visiting Serbia and Hungary before France. That would give priority to those countries. But still, having those countries as a destination for the same trip, what does it mean? It means, yes, I want to visit Western Europe, but I visit the ones who need me most, or for which it has the most significance, meaning France, because of the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties with China. But conversely, I'm also visiting very close friends, and what remains of the 17+1 links, which we used to have with Eastern Europe, and the only ones remaining from the 17+1 are Serbia and Hungary. So, no, it's not really a friendly message, let's be frank.